Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box, where today I want to talk about one of the finest vocalists of all time and one of my personal favorites, someone who perhaps uniquely among his generation and of many vocalists of his so-called classic pop style only got better and better with age. And this was true with respect to the timbre of his voice, in regard to the kinds of music he played, an ever increasing diversity of style, playing with more interesting arrangers, and in particular, it was his collaboration with one conductor and orchestrator, a man called Norman Geller, who was very well known in the Las Vegas music scene. The collaborations that they did together in the 70s and 80s were absolutely marvelous. And sadly, a lot of these albums are long out of print that Geller did with Vic Damone, who I don't even know if I said his name, but the singer I'm talking about in this video is, of course, Vic Damone, one of the finest of all time. Now, getting back to these albums, these albums compared to his earlier albums tend to be pretty out of print, but luckily one of the finest ones is on Spotify and some of the other streaming services. Now, the original name of this album was Vic Damone's Feelings, and it was released in 1977, but a different label released the exact same recording under the name Over the Rainbow in 1983. And this is the version, I mean, it's the exact same recording, but this is the cover art and this is the label that is assigned to this album on the streaming services. So if you look up Vic Damone Over the Rainbow, you'll be able to hear this album. And even if you're not a fan of classic pop music, even if you think, oh, by the 70s and 80s, that music and its generation of singers were far past their prime, listen to this album. And I think you'll be blown away by the arrangements, the use of modern electronic keyboards, the use of modern songs, but with a classic twist, but at the same time with very progressive and almost, dare I say, verging on the psychedelic, even though it's very much in keeping with the classic pop arrangement style of the 50s and 60s. There are definitely some, more than a few hat tips to, let's say, the kind of encroaching psychedelic style that you'd hear in the arrangement of a Jimmy Webb tune as sung by the Fifth Dimension, that kind of thing. So it's a very musically sophisticated album, and luckily it is on Spotify, albeit under a different name than it was originally released under. Another great one that is not on Spotify and so out of print. The rare copies of this album aren't even particularly valuable if you look on Discogs. It's just something that the labels have neglected. But this is an album called I Just Called to Say I Love You from 1985, which of course features a wonderful cover of the Stevie Wonder song for which it's named. It features Crazy, the great Willie Nelson song. It features She's Got Away, the wonderful Billy Joel song. Something, the Beatles, of course. The George Harrison song, and a version of Wind Beneath My Wings, which I find much more compelling actually than some of the ones that gain more notoriety. So definitely check out at least the one that you can find on Spotify, because at least that's easy. It's called Over the Rainbow. It was originally released as Vic Damone's Feelings. Check it out, and you'll hear a singer who, even though he's not in what the critics would call his prime, in actuality, that mature baritone voice, that eternal phrasing, Norman Geller's wonderful arrangements, and the selection of very interesting, extremely contemporary songs really makes it a wonderful listen. The whole world has slept on this album. You shouldn't. You just might thank me. And if you want to, like and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Take care.